Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Just Make It. Recently I had to drill a whole pile of holes in a bunch of these acrylic plates, and there's 16 of these in total, and I really wanted to cut down on the amount of time I was going to have to stand in front of the mill and run through the pattern. So I decided I was going to make a jig for this, and hold as many as I can comfortably, and because there's 16 of them, I figure 4 is a good number, and that way I cut my time down by 4, which is excellent. So what I'm going to do here is put a plate underneath wood, you can see there, just so I don't have to worry too much about drilling through the last sheet. And there's a bit of a buffer, and when I set the stop for the drill, it will definitely have enough margin of error. And the other thing I need to do is attach a piece of wood on the back here, which is going to register against the ways, so it'll be nice and straight. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything, but it does have to be reasonably accurate as far as just looking at it with your eye. And the other thing I need to do is add a corner piece, because I want to be able to pull these out and put the next batch in and have them, of course, register to a corner. And that way it'll keep everything nice and straight and easy. And of course that corner piece has a couple things that needed to be done to it. First off, it can't interfere with either the clamps that are going to go on these, and of course because the back piece is going to go down into the ways, I need to trim off a little bit of a corner there, just so that all it has to do is register, right? It doesn't have to be very strong or anything, and it definitely has to be out of the way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just make an L joint, really. I'm just going to mark these up, put them in the mill again. It's actually just using it as a drill press here. And I'm going to drill through, and that way it'll be much easier to align it up to the long piece, and I'll be able to screw that and glue it in place. It doesn't have to be that strong. It's not going to have any force on it, but if I end up having to do this sort of thing again, it would be nice to have this jig and be able to use it multiple times. So that's the reason for going to a little bit more of an elaborate setup than I need to. And I could have easily done this, I suspect, with a couple of clamps and just a bottom brace, just to make sure, again, that I don't drill into my the bed of my machine. So there you go. This is all set up now. I'm just going to stick this in the vise. Normally I would bolt the vise down onto the ways, but I'm going to be taking this all apart shortly anyway, so I'm just doing this by freehand. It does have a disadvantage, which you're going to see here shortly. Almost always, I guess I should say, because I'm not doing it this time, I almost always clamp all my work into position. That way, if there's a bit of torque on any of these, it won't mess up my work that I'm working on, and of course, it's better for your fingers. Because this piece is so small, I didn't really have any clamp that would fit it, so I figured I'd just do it freehand. It's not a big deal. I'm not really putting, as you can see here, much of a torque. I'm just doing a little bit at a time. But at the very end here, you see it just kicks out. Again, there's no real danger to my fingers or anything. And because the screw was already most of the way in, there was no big deal. It was just, like I said, just the kind of thing that you really need to take into account, especially if you're working on something that's bigger and they're putting a lot more force onto it. So there you go. A little bit of a not 90 degrees, looks like more like 88 or 87. Not a big deal, because I will be clamping this into place when I put it into its final position and screwing it down. So, like I said, it will straighten out. So you can see here, that little bit you see sticking up, that has to go away, because I need to ensure that this little corner piece is not going to be in the way at all when this is all finally assembled and, of course, all clamped down and ready to do the drilling. So I'm going to mark off a little nick there, and I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw here and just knock that out. It's not a big deal as far as accuracy goes, as long as it's not sticking too far down, and of course going to keep things from not being square when I get at the point where this is all assembled. So I can just do this freehand. It's quite simple and straightforward. I will also off camera run this through the belt sander, just to get a little bit of the rough edges that you're going to see here in a second off. just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. And that's it. Now it's a simple matter of taking this and gluing it in place. Because you see here, it actually turned out pretty good. Again, it's not really important as far as looks or anything is concerned, but it does have to ensure that whenever I pull out four, put another for it, or in the future use this, I can always just quickly set this up and clamp it down. Now there's something you're going to see at the end here. I'm going to show you it all fully assembled and everything in place. I added something afterwards, after I finished filming this. And I actually added another, not to this thing itself, but to the setup. There's going to be another, well, basically a stop. I'm going to put another clamp into place, one of the brass ones you see there. I'm going to put a little piece of aluminum underneath it just to hold this from moving along the ways from left to right. And the reason why I'm doing that is every time I set this up, if I didn't do that, I would have to re-zero where the drill's going to go in for the first hole. And this way I won't have to do that. I'll just have that third registry. This thing will sit against the wedge. You'll see it when it gets to that point, and it'll register towards the front, and I slide it up against that, clamp everything down, and it is ready to go for the next set. So I was going to glue this up and screw it into place. Again, I am not clamping this down as far as going to the ways, because I'm going to take this vise off in a few seconds. But I am going to clamp this one down. I am going to first make sure that the line's where I need it to be, and then because I don't want this to move, because this is a little bit more accurate and a little bit more important to be accurate, I am going to put a little clamp on this here and hold it down for the first hole. And then what I'm going to do after that, I'm going to take the clamp off and drill the second hole, making sure that it hasn't moved or anything. If it has just a little bit, I can tweak it just by tapping it one way or another, just to make sure that it is where I want it to be. So I'm not putting much pressure on that. I'm just making sure that it is held reasonably well, and this will, again, ensure that it doesn't move when I do this. Now I'm not going to mark this hole because it is right near the edge, and it's easy to see that it is lined up, and I can just drill straight down into it. The second hole, the one I'm going to be drilling here in a minute, I am going to mark that one because it is so much further along. I just didn't want to trust that my eye to seeing that it's centered properly, and that way I don't end up having it pop through the side of the bottom platform. And that's basically the whole build for this. Again, it looks like an awful lot of work to go to for putting something as simple as this together. But again, this is something I'm going to be able to use again. But even if I didn't, there are 16 of these plates I need to drill, and roughly it takes about 10 minutes to drill through one. So instead of taking 160 minutes to do this, I'm going to be able to do it in 40, which is obviously not including any setup times or anything. But, of course, if I hadn't done all this, the setup times would be much greater for like doing them individually. So anyway, just my reasoning for this, as far as I'm concerned, this only took half hour, 45 minutes to put together. And again, there you go, nice and simple, and it will save me an awful lot of standing time. So I'm going to show you the final setup here, and like I said, added to the top of the screen at the moment another clamp just to hold the bottom in place so that I don't have to realign these every time I do this. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.